Okay, so I'm really excited for today's episode, and that is because I'm going to teach you one of the secrets of building FOMO during your fundraising process. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to figure out how do you get VCs excited about your company, then listen up because that's what we're going to cover today. All right. So the first thing you got to learn and you got to understand about venture capitalists is that as much as we would love to say that we are contrarian investors, we are always looking for the next big thing and disruptive technologies and all this stuff, the reality is that as VCs, we're kind of lemmings. You know that old joke, would you go run off the cliff if your buddy did it too? And to a certain extent, like there's some real truth to that. And there's some good reasons as to why. One of those reasons is that, if you're funding a company all by yourself and nobody else has that same conviction that you do and believes in it to fund it, then it can be really hard to build a successful business. And so venture capital, even from the very early days, it's always been this like club type mentality. Every other fund is like a frenemy. And as a venture investor, you're investing not just by yourself, but you're also investing with co-investors. I mean, it's very common for a startup to raise money from not just one fund, but multiple funds. And that's because these things are risky and they're hard and they take a lot of capital to really grow and become, these huge companies, these unicorns, et cetera, et cetera. And so because of that, as a venture capitalist, it's really hard to like go it alone on deals. And so for that reason, and many, many others, it's created kind of this lemming mentality where VCs only kind of get excited about your deal if somebody else is also excited about it. And so that's the trick, is how do you get other VCs excited and kind of build this groundswell that creates the FOMO that you need in fundraising. Now, the other thing you need to remember in fundraising is that fundraising is all about momentum. You lose momentum, and it's going to be really challenging to close your round or to close your round at a high valuation. And so what you need is constant momentum moving forward. And so the way that you time your fundraise, the way you approach it can make a huge difference in terms of how you start momentum, how you continue momentum, all the way to your final close. All right, so here is my best tactical advice on how to approach it. First, you're going to need warm intros to venture capitalists. They either need to be warm or they need to be hot, as in you know the person and can get in front of them. Or you need to know somebody who knows the person. And look, it's hard. I get it. Warm intros are hard, but VCs like warm intros because it demonstrates entrepreneur hustle. Like, can you actually get a warm intro to me? And from somebody that I actually respect. So here's your game plan. First, you're going to go to signal.nfx.com. There you'll find a list of tons and tons of different venture capitalists broken down by the stage they invest and the sectors that they invest in. You're going to find those that fit your type of company based on the stage and sector you're in. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go through and you're going to do your research on them. You're going to figure out who are your tier one venture investors, those that you would love to have them on your cap table because they are great people, great investors, but also because they bring clout and credibility and brand. Maybe they work at Sequoia, maybe they work at Benchmark, or maybe they work, at a fund like Fifth Wall if you're a real estate company, which, Fifth Wall is one of the best real estate tech investors. Whatever it might be, you figure out what your tier one is, you figure out what your tier two is, you figure out what your tier three is, in terms of caliber and quality of funds as well as fit with your business. Then what you do is you go and meet with your tier ones, but you don't pitch them on raising money. Instead, what you do is you ask them for advice. You say, hey, I know I'm too early for you. We're not a good fit, blah, blah, blah. But I need to go out and raise my seed round or my Series A or whatever it might be. And I would love your feedback on my pitch deck and what I'm doing, okay? So you go out, meet with all these tier one VCs that you can get meetings with, and just pick their brains, get their advice, okay? Once you've done that, then go to your tier two funds. And here's the magic. You can basically go to these tier two funds and say, hey, I just had a great meeting with XYZ tier one fund. I'd love to tell you what we're doing, see if it's a fit for your fund. Do all of those pitches, do them as close together as you possibly can. If you're not in Silicon Valley, fly out to Silicon Valley, spend a week on Sand Hill Road, just hitting every single venture fund that you can get into with. When you're done with that, then go, and before you even get term sheets or follow-up or anything else, go pitch to your tier 3 venture funds. These should be the easiest ones for you to get excitement and interest in. And again, you're going to use the same playbook. I was meeting with tier 1 and tier 2 VCs. I'd love to meet with you and tell you our story because you're a regional player, or you have this niche play or whatever. Like, flatter them a little bit, get in, meet with them. Your goal then is to go back to your tier 2 VCs and tell them about all of the success you're seeing with your tier 3 VCs. You don't even have to be specific about who you're talking to and expecting term sheets from. But what you need to do is you need to get your tier 3s to get to a term sheet. Once you get to a term sheet with them, then you can start building FOMO, because now you go back to your tier 2 VCs and say, hey, we're expecting a bunch of term sheets. You sure you want to participate in this or not? As you build momentum with those tier 2s, then you go back to your tier 1s. And the pitch to the tier 1s isn't, hey, do you want to invest? It's, hey, I'm now getting lots of term sheets from different venture funds, and I would love your advice on how to pick the right one and how to navigate this process and blah, 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 right? And what you'll find is those tier 1 VCs, as they start to see tier 2 and tier 3 VCs start getting excited about it, then that will build the FOMO that maybe the tier 1s look at this and say, maybe I missed something here. Maybe I should sharpen my pencil and dive a little bit deeper. And that's ultimately how you get the tier 1 VCs excited and into your deal. Now, this whole process, it cannot take months and months and months. You really only have about a month to build all of this momentum and FOMO. And ultimately what you need is to get to a signed term sheet. So what'll happen is these venture funds will start submitting term sheets and say, hey, here's our offer, here's our deal, here's how much we'd pay, here are the basic terms, like we want a board seat, we want this, we want that, whatever. You can use those term sheets then to kind of build that momentum. But once you get the term sheet that you want with the fund that you're most excited about, then you want to sign, and then at that point, you're basically engaged. And the other venture fund is going to dive in and do their due diligence on you. Now, it's important that during this engagement process that you're really sure you've done your diligence ahead of time on the venture fund. Because the last thing you want to have happen is for that fund to find something that is a surprise. So one, you should be 100% transparent and open with them. And you don't want to find out a surprise about them that makes you not want to do the deal anymore. Because if the deal falls apart during the engagement process, it's going to be really hard to pick up the pieces and close a round. Because basically, if your tier 1 VC says, no, I'm not doing this deal, it will scare away every other VC out there. Because tier 1 VCs cut both ways. On the plus side, if you can close a tier 1 VC, there are a lot of benefits you get from it. One, it'll be easier to hire. It will be easier to fundraise in the future for your next round. There's kind of a joke or saying that if you raise your Series A from a Benchmark, an Excel, a Sequoia, you're pretty much guaranteed to be able to raise a Series B. All bets are off the table for your Series C, but at least you kind of guaranteed a Series B, because all the tier 2s and tier 3s will say, oh, wow, well, Sequoia did the Series A, so this must be an interesting company, and they'll give you the benefit of the doubt to invest. So it's easier to fundraise. It's easier to hire because, employees will be like, oh, it's backed by this great tier 1 VC. Yeah, there must be something here. I want to join. And then it'll be easier to get customers as well for same and similar reasons. So there are a lot of huge benefits to getting a tier 1 VC, but it also cuts the opposite way. So if a tier 1 VC ends up pulling out of the deal, or they pass and that gets broadly known, then every other VC will be like, I don't know, if Sequoia passes and Sequoia sees all the great deals, then maybe there's not something here, right? And it will require you to find an investor that's willing to really roll up their sleeves and have some deep conviction in order to get a deal done. Which, let's talk about that for just a minute. So, conviction. So, in venture capital, it is so hard to know what the future is going to be. And there are so many things that kill companies on a regular basis. That's why this industry is so risky, and also why the returns have to be so big in order to justify it. At the end of the day, though, you as an entrepreneur should have insane levels of conviction that your worldview is the right one. And your job, really, as a founder of the company, is to clearly communicate that conviction and that vision to everybody that you come in contact with, whether that's venture capitalists you're raising from, employees you're looking to hire, and customers that you're trying to bring on board. When it comes to the venture capitalist, you need that venture capitalist to share your vision so that they can develop that deep conviction that's going to allow them to convince their partners to allow them to invest in your company and to support you during the ups and downs. And you need to convince that venture capitalist and help them gain that conviction that your worldview of how your company is going to impact the world is the right one and will result in building a huge business and generate massive returns for them, because they in turn have to go and convince their partners and their investors that they should take this crazy risky bet on you. Fundraising at the end of the day is super hard. And the path that I laid out is used by some of the very best entrepreneurs out there. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way to do it. There are lots of ways to approach it. Use the approach that might work best for you, your personality, and your ability to communicate your vision and your conviction to your potential investors. And use your own abilities to create that conviction in the investors that you're trying to pitch to. If this video was helpful, check out my other video where I talk about when will valuations get back to their 2021 levels. Thanks.